Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, a short overview of an online course website. My name is Danny Shapiro, and I'm on the marketing team here at Hox Learning. Our speaker today is Professor Kathy Lenertz of Fort Hays State University. Professor Lenertz has been teaching mathematics and statistics in a variety of formats, traditional, hybrid, closed-circuit TV, and online since 1987 at several colleges and universities in the United States. Ms. Lenertz has co-authored peer-reviewed publications on the changing prevalence of diabetes and related comorbidities among nursing home residents. She has also co-authored an article on the impacts of changing smoking laws on indoor air quality. In addition, she has served as assistant chair of the 2012 Teaching Public Administration Conference. If you have questions throughout this webinar, please enter those into the Q&A box located on the panel at the bottom of your screen, and we'll make sure to address them at the end of the talk. And on that note, I would like to hand it over to our presenter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. Okay, this short overview has four basic pieces, which will kind of be interwoven. What are the students in for in an online course? Where do they start in the website? And then I have examples of worked examples from my subject, which is statistics. It's algebra-based statistics, both visual and verbal, because I found that students, some of them are eye learners and some of them are primarily ear learners. They have to learn to use both, but it gives them also my voice. And then the issue of feedback to students, some of which, of course, are grades. Okay, so to begin, let's go to the website here, which I confess I didn't make up. I am indebted to my colleagues who run this course, and I'm part of the committee that works on it. We start out with announcements, and these announcements are opened up during the week before classes begin. It's like the students are loaded into the Blackboard format on usually the Friday afternoon before the course starts on the Monday. And then I try to make these announcements live starting about Wednesday. The first announcement gives them the idea of what they're in for. That this is a completely online course. It utilizes a very friendly tone. It tells the students how you're going to communicate with me and I with you. The university email is our vehicle of choice. And although if they send me something from their Hotmail or Gmail, I'll simply hit the reply button. But all official email communications from me are going to go through the university email. Now, I also explain kind of the realities of things. Namely, we're not going to be living in each other's pockets. The idea that I'll have a series of announcements and I'll turn them loose on things, point them in the right direction and say go. But I'm nobody's mother. I'm not going to be nagging them about, hey, you have to get this going. And because a lot of my students are working adults. Some of them have work schedules that are not 9 to 5. Some of them are actually looking for work at this terrible time. So I try to be respectful of people's progress and just keep things low key. Okay. In terms of the course content, we have it set up so the course is divided into 3 units, and we tell the students straight up, you're not going to see everything from the first date. We're going to be opening this up gradually, 1 unit at a time. Although if a suitably advanced student, and I usually get at least 1 in each class, where the student just blows through the material and starts looking around for more, I will open up the folder, the next folder for that, for the class, and just not tell anybody else. They'll see it when they're ready for it. Okay, that's the first announcement. This is a slightly altered one. I didn't make this one up myself. In fact, most of what you're going to see today is stuff that I've worked on, but it isn't something that was my total brainchild. And that's the big deal, is have a team with you. Don't try to do all of this yourself unless you are a glutton for punishment. Okay, The second issue is once they kind of get an idea of what they're in for, is where do they start? Because as you can see, there's a whole bunch of folders here, and they won't actually use all of them. This is a kind of a generic website that we didn't kill off everything that we are going to be using. So I go with the first content instructions. Again, I'm indebted to my course coordinator for giving me the basic part of how this is done. I altered it to include some things that I wanted to say, and I believe in highlighting deadlines and occasionally putting bold things on, bold font where it's needed. Okay, so we start them out and we tell them that what you're going to be needing to do is to look at the syllabus, because the syllabus is going to give you a handle on where the course is going to go, what parts of the book you're going to use. By the way, our book comes in both physical and online format. The online format is completely integrated into our Hox Learning System, which is our online homework. So they don't actually have to buy a separate book. That's a nice thing, because let's say this gets expensive fast. So let's start out with where they would go as they're reading the first content. Well, I have my own announcement, and this is the basics of where I located things. And then, so we start out with the syllabus and course guide, course intro. And if they're interested in finding out more about me, which probably a good idea, the contact information gives them the basics of how to find me. We'll pull this up. The picture, my Skype handle, and my university email. The university email is definitely available to them in other places, but I thought putting it all in one place would be helpful. Now then, we go to the syllabus and course intro, which is right down here, the next one after instructor information. And it has all kinds of things, which we start out with the syllabus and we order them to read it, because they have to know what they're in for, and they're responsible for all the information in it. Okay, so what kind of information do we put in it? Well, we talk about the meeting time, and this is one of those where you have to really get it into them, that, especially the ones that haven't taken an online course before, that you can be working anytime during the day or night. I have had students who work graveyard, sleep during the day. They'll do their stuff in the late evening before they go to work. I have one lady who lives in Vietnam, student this term. She's 12 hours ahead of me. So when she and I have times that we can actually communicate directly, she's really fond of Skype. Certain points in the morning, certain points in the evening. Otherwise, she's at work or I'm at work, or, she's asleep or I'm asleep. At any rate, we don't limit them to the 9 to 5 experience. Office hours. Some instructors like to do designated office hours of, hanging out on Zoom or Skype and saying, hey, come talk to me, 3 to 5 on Sunday afternoon or whatever it is. I tend to say, I don't do that. I may do it during this summer when I teach the summer section, because it's really compacted and stuff like that. But I mostly let the students let me know as to when they would like to communicate. And of course I do sleep, so I can't necessarily be there at 3 in the morning if they have a panic fit. I do set up from time to time Skype or Zoom sessions with students according to their desire. It's like, what time do you want to meet and what day? And then we'll get on it together. And then the nuts and bolts of the syllabus, the issue of what do you need to have? We're very specific about the version of Excel, and our university makes it a free copy available to all students. They have Office 365, which has Excel 2016 in it. So we don't force them to buy the Excel. They do have to have a computer that's good enough to handle it, though. The usual course objectives, expectations of students, And the rest of this part is just university boilerplate. Don't copy, treat each other nicely and so forth and so on. Where things really get specific to the online experience is more towards the end. Now we've got this nice little schedule map here where we pinpoint the due dates on the exams, we pinpoint when you're going to be submitting various things, and we put the schedule in more specific terms in another spot that I'll show you. But the final words are really important. We stress that they are to be active participants. Occasionally a student will take the class, I usually get 2 or 3 a term, in fact, where this online thing, they're not actually up for it. They're just not ready for it. And that's a learning experience of its own. They have to be kind of nudged into saying, hey, you really have to get after this every week. Then I invite them to contact me if there's anything they can't find, don't understand, have issues with, as well as statistics questions. Hi, here's a problem I couldn't do. Can you help me with it? Of course. But we make it plain that the student, he or she is not on his own, but it's more on your own than you would be in a traditional class. Okay, so where to go next? Well, we have our Hox Learning System. This is where we have the homework portion. We have other assignments that I'll show you in a minute. And we tell them that they have to have the data analysis tool pack that is part of Excel, and I give them instructions for how to get it, whether they have a PC or a Mac. Now, after the syllabus and course intro, we then come down to the idea of the semester calendar. Okay, semester calendar. Before the term begins, I put in literally every deadline that they will ever need for this course. And that includes the last day to withdraw, the due date for your proctor, due dates for the Hox Learning System homework, due dates for all of the exercises, and I carefully label which ones are optional. We do have a few bonus exercises, and I mention the optional ones, and any student who asks, I say, yes, this one, you don't have to do it if you don't want to, go ahead. Everything else is required. And we talk about when the Unit 3 exam, say unit exam is due, they can link this to their phone, and many do. They can actually take this and scroll forward or backwards as they wish through the whole term and get an idea of exactly which weeks are going to be the bad ones, which weeks are going to be light, and which ones are going to be medium, and then where all the exams are, and make arrangements with their work schedules if possible. Okay, so after that, at this point, we need to talk about the actual course material itself. What are they going to be doing for grades? Now, we have this thing called Unit 0, and students, a few students blow it off, but it actually is a real assignment. Here I've got it so I don't have to actually pull it up and spend time with that. It's an intro where we talk to them about browser plugins, the basic computer stuff that they have to be able to cope with. And then we ask them a series of questions, and we ask them to email me with the following information. Some students will actually copy the questions themselves. Others will simply copy their answers in the appropriate order. This gives the students and me a chance to see, do our emails work? This almost always does fine, but every once in a while things get a little messy. We need to know, are they going to try and have proctoring on campus? I know, since I don't live at FSU anymore, I can't be the proctor, but we want to know who's in town, who's not, what their year is, their major. This is the getting to know you stuff, so they understand that we're interested in them as people. The reason for taking this statistics class, it's always required for the majors that we have, one of which is nursing, by the way, which is a really important major these days. Why taking it online? Now, this is where I definitely read this question carefully, because some students will say, well, I couldn't get into the on-campus one. Others will say, I really like online courses. Some will say, I have to do it this way because I live out in the country and I can't get out, or I live far away and I just can't get there. I do want to know what kind of computer they're using, because as I write in my reply, I reply to every student who sends this in to let them know that, yes, I got it, and to respond to at least one item in there to let them know that I read it. Mac users frequently find it difficult to attach things in Blackboard, so I tell them, by the way, if you have this problem, just send it to me by email attachment and it'll count. No problem. And I also have had in past terms to caution students against trying to use something like Google Docs, which doesn't have enough functionality for the later parts of the course. Now then, so this one's 10 points if you do it, 0 if you don't. It's the easiest 10 points in the course, and it gets everybody out in a good mood. They feel like, okay, I've been heard. Interestingly, a lot of students will put a great deal of personality into this. They'll tell me, hey, the stats or math is hard for me. I'm scared to death of this course. And I'm like, okay, I respond to that. I react to it and say, we can get you through this. We'll be okay. You'll make it, keep up. All right. The rest of it is delivered unit by unit. And we have, in each of the 3 remaining units, we have a lessons guide, which is a Word document. Well, it's a PDF, actually. They can and should not just read this, but make a copy, put it in the disk, study it. We have certain required exercises, a couple of which, one of which I'm going to show you in a moment, the activity 1B, which is a little interesting one. And then I put in some additional material. Now, the additional material is partly to be there for them when I can't physically be there, because I can't have them just trolling by my office. I don't have an office except in my study. We don't see each other physically. So I left material on there that I created in sometimes Word documents, sometimes Excel documents, and some of them videos, because again, some students really need to hear something in their ears when they're learning. I used to have a former student of mine who had a wonderful set of software where he could edit videos, and he did some of these for me. I recorded, and we have access to VidGrid at my school, and he made them very pretty for me. I'll show you some kind of bare ones that I did later. And a lot of it is just things like how to use frequencies, how to build a histogram, where I go through step by step how to build a graph of the sort that they're going to do. And I use problems that are off of old problem sets. So I'm not trying to say, I'll do the easy ones and then make you do hard ones. And so on and so forth. The others are Excel documents. Here's one, a typical one. Interestingly, building z-scores is one of the most difficult things that students do, because it requires just a little bit of algebra that a lot of students have forgotten. The algebra being that when you want to subtract before you divide, you have to put parentheses around the difference. And students forget to put the parentheses on it. And so I'll show them, here we are, equals the difference, 48 minus 40.9, and then divide the result by 6.1. And it comes out nicely. And then we round it to, in this case, 2 decimal places. And it shows the use of the round command. Yes, you have to have a comma here. And students need to see this. I have others that are much more complicated, but this one's a pretty cool little one. Now, so you think, okay, doing problems, watching videos on how you do problems, that's one thing. But we also have a different kind of assignment. The second assignment that they turn in, activity 1A, is where it's basic Excel moves. This one is collecting data and responding to it. And we give them a couple of different things to look for. We say, well, you can do stuff on the weather. Underground is good. You can do stuff from the CDC or census. It's also good. And the assignment is to pick a collection of data values in reference to various variables from a website of your choice. Many students will simply pick the weather and go with it. Others will go with CDC. Again, I have a lot of nursing majors, so the CDC option is very popular. And some students will actually really extend themselves. They'll be looking at things on engineering, things on education, just all kinds of interesting stuff. And you learn a lot about the students by watching what do they pick, not just how well they do the assignment, although that's something I do need to look at, but what data do they actually pick? What do they respond to? What makes them feel good? Now, this is the one place in the course where I absolutely require them to use discussion boards, which is one of our options here. So discussion board. And I don't make a huge amount of use of them other than to check back at the first part of the course to see if anybody's reporting any weird questions that they felt shy about telling me personally. But the activity 1B, data from the internet, you can see it had 56 entrants. And that's because the student was required to respond to somebody else's data as well. Okay, people in the liberal arts area, my husband's a political science professor. He uses discussion boards every week, and the students are given several discussion topics that they need to pick one and respond to in a responsible way, where you ask them a question about certain political issues of the day. Okay, so then at this point, once we have all this, and again, how much you put into the extra material is up to you. I always focus it by chapter and section, so the students can say, okay, I'm in chapter 6, what do I do? What have I got available to me? Okay, this is 6.4, it's on counting, and then they can look at it that way. All right, so after that, you say, well, Excel, not everybody's equally talented in Excel, and we do have some help for the students on that. So the Excel guides, which have their own folder, are down here below discussion board. And I click on it. And each of the units has at least one guide. The unit 3, because it involves both hypothesis testing and regression, we split that up into 2 pieces because the topics really don't coordinate well with each other. Here's a typical example. This is from unit 2. Okay, let me just pull this up top here. Using Excel to investigate probability distributions. And I love the phrase, and more. Now, I did not create these particular examples. I am indebted to my colleagues who did. And they are referenced by chapter and section. Those students can say, okay, the generalized probability, discrete probability distribution. And one of the things I love about this one is they point out exactly where you're going to get the mean and how you do it. This says take the sum of the columns G4 and G18 and G14 to G18. Well, column G is this one right here, and it's saying multiply X by its probability. And then add the result, that's your mean, which is expected value. And then this one is the variance, which is a little more complicated. It's the sum of this column. And then the standard deviation is the square root of the variance. SQRT becomes one of the students' favorite Excel functions, take the square root. In our one of our first few exercises, we introduced them the difference between squaring and taking the square root. A lot of students don't really realize those are 2 different things. Okay, so after we have the Excel guides, again, we don't leave them hanging. And if there's something in there the student doesn't understand, they ask and I respond. Now, what I haven't talked about is feedback. How do we do feedback in this course? Well, there's the traditional grades. Everything is graded that the students have. Let's see, get back here to where I was. All right, everything gets a grade and they can look at that. And at the end of each of the 3 units, we give them a course grade to date. so they can kind of see how they're doing. And if a student says, hey, I'm feeling really nervous, halfway through unit 1, how am I doing? And I'll do a quick computation and say, this is your grade right now. But there are other forms of feedback. And one of the biggest is, since we don't see each other 3 times a week in class, and I don't do this by closed circuit TV, there's the issue of, okay, how do the students keep up? Some students are really good at it. They're right on the assignments. They turn them in either early or right on time. They're very self-directed. Other students, they get overwhelmed by life. Right now, life is pretty overwhelming. So what I do is, the first thing is, if a student doesn't communicate with me in some fashion, either by turning in an assignment, submitting a homework section in their Hox stuff, or sending me an email, I will send them, after about a week or so, a little note, and it'll say, are you okay? Or can I help you? And that'll be the title of it. And I've never known one to not respond to that, except the ones that were planning to withdraw or were just planning to disappear. Some students just do that. But a lot of them will say, oh, thank you, my baby was sick or work was crazy. I'll get that in really soon. I'm getting screwed up, but I'm going to get caught up soon. And I say, okay, fine. As far as due dates go, I've been extremely nice about due dates this term, because for obvious reasons, the virus has done a number on people. So I am not taking points off for things. I just say, please get it in. Anything that's not turned in is a 0. Okay, what are the forms of feedback? Well, earlier in the term, like before the drop date, if the student didn't respond to my "Are you okay?" Note after a deadline, missing a deadline or something like that, I would go and send a quick note to their advisor. Hey, have you heard from this person? He's not responding, or she. Can you get a hold of him? And every once in a while, the advisor can get a hold of the student. They'll respond to the advisor when they don't respond to me, and they'll start communicating again. Some students, again, just disappear because that's what they do. Okay, the other assignments are your pretty standard stuff. We have exam things that prepare the students for the exam, exam prep documents. This is where we put our proctoring forms. The students are required to have all exams be proctored, either through Examity, ProctorU, or with a human proctor via a testing center or one-on-one interaction. And we have some rules about who can proctor you. Your friend, another student can't proctor you. Your friends can't proctor you, and nobody in your family can proctor you. Now, each unit has exam preparation materials. That's in addition to the formula card, which we do allow them to use. We give them a topical list for review. And then this practice problem set. Now, this problem set's worth 60 points. I tell them students, the word practice is because we take the problems there, and those are the problems, the types of problems you will see on the exam. So they're practicing for the exam. But the problem set itself is graded and required. So there's a little dual use of language there that sometimes catches students, and I'll try to make a point of putting in an announcement that you really, 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 really need to take these seriously. The announcements, by the way, also, let's go back there and show you one that I do just about every week, is upcoming deadlines. Now, today's the 14th. That tells me today I need to put out another announcement. I happen to know nothing's due today, but I will be putting one out this evening. And it'll be like the 14th through some convenient day. And it tells them what items are due on each day. And I send it to them leave it as an announcement, and also hit the send as a separate email. And that helps as well. Then we have our exam documents. Okay, so exam documents right here. Again, another copy of the formula and table card, because this is the only folder they're allowed to go to during the exam itself. Each unit has an exam. Unit 3 exam isn't posted yet, and the final exam isn't either. And again, they're all proctored. The exams carry a particular weight in the course, so the students know better than to blow them off. And we don't have any retakes on exams. Like, you screw this up, I'm sorry, bad things happen. Okay, the Hox Learning System is where we have our online homework, and it is a separate cost to the students, and it's unfortunate. Some students go, oh my gosh, this course is expensive. And the answer is yes, but I'm not going to be having them send me stuff by email attachment with scribbles on it. That's just not a useful use of my time or theirs. So this helps us keep track of things. Okay, that's pretty much where I wanted to go with all of this. Yeah, are there any questions here people would like to ask?
Okay, thank you, Professor Lenertz. We're already starting to get some questions. So I think you were just talking about this, but we had an attendee ask about testing for online classes and looking for online solutions with that. Is there any other things you've encountered that might be helpful there?
Okay, there are a couple of different ways to go with online exams. Some people like to use the unproctored open book approach. Okay, I know professors in liberal arts who some of whom do that. We in the math department feel that is inappropriate. So unproctored isn't happening. That puts a burden on us. The options that we have used in the past and are currently using involve Examity or ProctorU. Examity's got an issue right now because of the coronavirus. They said all their live proctors are pretty much shut down. ProctorU is still working for us. Also experimenting with what's called a locked browser, where the student goes into it and it simply refuses to let the student move the browser so that they can't go to any other document. And using an exam that is more multiple choice, fill in the blank, rather than worked problems directly. That's still in progress. There's a committee in my department that is working on the Unit 3 exam for that. I don't know, they haven't finished it yet, so I'm not sure how we're going to go with that. I think it's called Respondus. Yeah, Respondus. Okay. I am not familiar with other online proctoring schemes. I know there are a few others. And what I've also had students do is they have a human proctor, but the human proctor communicates with them through one-on-one in Zoom. Now, the basic Zoom is freeware. If you have an account or the student does, the two of you can hook up. I actually proctored a student using that format for 2 exam where I could see her as she was working, and I kept track of the time. And then when she finished, she would submit it, and it would come to me online, and I would say, "Okay, we're done here." But that's the ones I know about. I said there may be other options that I simply have never used or not heard of, but those are the ones that I know of, and they're pretty good.
And Hox does offer Respondus Lockdown Browser through our platform. So
yeah. Okay. Yes.
Hox, that is something that we offer, and somebody can, if you reach out, can of course help you take advantage of that if you'd like to implement it in your course.
Okay. I will communicate with my course coordinator and remind him that Hox has got the Respondus, so that we may actually be able to do it through everybody working through their Hox account, which would actually be pretty interesting. I'll send a note to Jeff about this. Thank you for reminding me.
Sounds great. Getting lots more questions here. Another question: how do you submit grades to students throughout the semester? Does your university allow you to do that through email?
Okay, we have Blackboard as our student-teacher interface. Let me go punch up the. It's called Grade Center, and let me just kind of scroll over really fast here. So I'm trying to avoid violating more privacy than I must here. Okay. Oh no, don't do that. Okay, it wants to talk to me. Okay. There is a portal through which the students attach their work in Blackboard, and then when I click into it, it allows me to submit it. Let me just go really fast, pull up one that's already been done. And okay, it comes through as a hot link, which I download, and then pull the password off and save it to my disk, go in, grade it. Exams are not returned. That's by order of my department for security reasons. What we do is we give them a feedback sheet where I tell them, you know, you made a mistake by, say, not putting in parentheses for computing your Z-score, or whatever it is that they did wrong, or you need to go back and restudy the particular topic, like confidence interval on proportion. That just didn't go well for you. The grade is tapped in right here, and then I hit submit, and it pops up on their Blackboard. Okay. And I go back here to the full grade center, and then at the end of the unit, this is treated as text right here. It's set up, and I simply click on the arrow and click in here, and I have an Excel file where I compute all the grades, and then I just type it in and hit enter, and then it fixes the grade in there. The student can go on the My Grades section and see all of his or her grades. Okay, does that answer the question that was posed well enough? I mean, I can go on further.
I think so. We'll keep getting to some of these other ones.
That's great.
Next question is, what is your typical class size for this course?
Classes are capped at 25 in the regular term. I am allowed to permit an overload. And in terms of students, I have to go and the student would request to be admitted to the class when it's full. And as long as it's during the first week or two, I go into the registrar's office, write a note saying, please allow student name, student ID number to be admitted to section number and name. Sincerely yours, and my name. And the registrar does this manually. The choice of how many overloads I'm willing to take is up to me. Some instructors want none of the above. Others will take a few extra. I usually have a few students drop out. Everybody does. I think the closest I ever came to having no students drop out was, I think I had like 18 out of 25 finish a term. This course is pretty hard. So I know I'm going to lose a few. So I'll take a couple of extra ones at the beginning and have them added into the course. Okay. But 25 is the official course is full. And that's set by the department. They just decided they couldn't handle any more than that.
Okay, next question. Aside from your Skype or Zoom office hours, do you hold a first meeting with your students so that there's an opportunity for the students to interact and perhaps find ways to help each other and work together?
I have not done so. I am experimenting, looking for not terribly expensive ways to get this done, but at this time, I don't really have an option for it. So it's possible that the professional level of Zoom would allow me to do that. It may not. I'm not sure. I need to try and get on and get a copy of the professional level of Zoom when not everybody in the country is trying to get one, because believe me, I've tried and their lines are just jammed because everybody wants it. So it is possible that if I got the one for large meetings that I could have students respond to each other in real time. Although I found that my students' schedules are so different from each other in terms of when they work, when they want to work on things, that it might take major amounts of coordination to make that work, and it might not be practical. I don't know. I'm thinking about trying to do it for the summer, but I haven't got that set up yet.
Well, I can say as a heavy Zoom user here at Hox Learning, Zoom would be able to accommodate that function for you. We, of course, can't help you with the scheduling aspect, but Zoom is a platform that would allow you to have students meet and interact.
Right, but if it's more than one-on-one, I know you have to have at least the professional version, right? And that's the one that's not free. Okay, so yeah, as soon as I can get me one of those, I'm probably going to be inviting students to maybe have a group meeting occasionally, like a few times a term. But that's I'm still growing on this course. I just recently learned how to use Microsoft Whiteboard, got a copy of it and started using it. I'm looking into learning more about Zoom, like I said, videos, the whole works of, attachments for things from YouTube. So I look at me as a work in progress, and that's one of, on my to-do list is scheduling group meetings.
So we have just a couple comments before we get on to the next question from our audience. Brian says that the free version of Zoom actually does allow large group meetings, but there's a 40-minute time limit.
Oh, okay. So you can actually have it more than one-on-one, but it's 40 minutes.
And okay. Richard also wanted to say that Cisco WebEx is currently offering free for up to 100 attendees for the next few months. He said that you can monitor every student in their own video window for exams.
Oh, okay. Cisco WebEx. Cool. All right. Well, bless them. I will definitely look into that. Great.
So next question, for the Excel assignments, do you provide a template for them to just fill in, or do you have them figure it out on their own?
Yes. Okay. For some Excel assignments, they are required to work with what's there and figure out what to do about it. Let me go pull up something of the sort that we're talking about here. Grab something that has what we want. For instance, okay. All right, activity 3. Okay, this is one of the activities from the first unit where we give them a demo of, this is the relative frequency form of probability, whereas the number of cases, number of deaths divided by number of cases gives you the probability of dying of this particular disease, whatever it is. And then we ask them to go find data that involves the same thing. So this is more one of the show them what you want and then have them do it on their own. Again, the idea of relative frequency, where the student can see, okay, the base number of what's happening, that's deaths and then cases, and then you're dividing one from the other, okay? And that's the kind of thing we want them to do. So that's sort of a simulation, sort of a template. Other times, like with the last question here, we ask them, okay, probability the student is a male. Well, that's total males divided by total students. Well, the total males idea is they have to know that they have to sum up all of the row that has males in it, okay? So they would have to go highlight the row and then hit the sum button and say, oh, I have 98 males. And then they say, okay, well, how many, what's the grand total of students? See if we can, let's see, we can get the total number here of females and sum that. And then we can sum that total. Those two. And we say, oh, okay, so it's equal to 98. That is the total number of males, divided by the total number of students. And you get 54.44%. That's an example of something where they're expected to take the material and to get an understanding of what they need by reading about what the basic probability does, and then taking it to a problem that is somewhat of a bigger, better version of something they've been doing from the other exercises. So that's one way to do it. Another activity that we have them do of the sort that different is this one. It's using the binomial distribution. And we actually point out to them an experiment and show them with a link that you can pull up this little simulator here. If it takes it, might take a second here. There we go. Come on, simulator, go. Okay, and this quincunx and say, all right, you can set your probability. We do the whole problem on 50%, but then we invite them to experiment with what happens if it were at 20% success? What happens if it were 80% success? How would that change the shape of the distribution? And we pick a certain size. I think that we were using 10 in this particular problem. And we say, okay, restart. And then we invite the students to watch as, you know, a certain number of balls hit the ground. And you say, well, this one's moving pretty slowly. And the answer is, yeah, because I set it at something nice and slow. So you can move the speed up. And it's a simulator of what happens to the binomial distribution if you're looking at probability of success is 50%, and you have it's like 10 multiple choice, 10 true false questions. You know, how many did you get correct? None or all 10. And you see how it's building up, and it's becoming roughly bell-shaped. There's a little bit of differences here. And the students can experiment with how many they want to use. We have a suggestion in the problem of how many they need to look at using. Then we can say, all right, once you've run this one, and you can ask it to stop after a certain number, which we'll do in a minute here. We go through and we say, all right, use the function binom.dist, and we actually tell them what it is that we want them to use. Tell them n is 10, p is a half, okay? And then fill it in with the x's. So x has to start at 0 and go all the way to 10. And then fill in the probabilities. And then we ask them to say, all right, if you were going to have, say, 450 marbles, what would this probability distribution tell you is the number of marbles to expect in each of them? Let me pull up the key to show you the kind of thing they should get. Here we are. So we have binom.dist, and they're asked to click the X, put in a comma, tell me how many, which is 10. Probability of success is a half. The false means that we're not using cumulative. We're actually saying, I want the probability that X will equal 0. This is the probability X will equal 1. Probability X will equal 5, and so on. And then we say, okay, now, what if you were going to have 450 marbles run down on the quincunx? What is the estimated number of marbles you should see in each of the bins? And you notice they're not whole numbers because this is a weird decimal multiplied by 450. You take the probability here and multiply by 450. And then we say, okay, round this to the nearest whole number. And you notice it's nice, symmetric. It's fairly bell-shaped. And then we ask them to run it. Now, this is one run that was left in here so that we can see what's going on, but the students get their own. And then we ask the students to comment on how similar or not similar their particular experiment is. I know one student got really frustrated, didn't like what he saw the first time, and then ran it a second time and commented on both and said, oh, I see that the different experiments don't have to come out close to they can come close to the, what the probability should, quote, should be, the canonical probability, or they can be wildly different. And he actually ended up being one of my better students because he was started having the courage to experiment with it and say, oh, okay, I see the difference between experimental probability and what the formula predicts will happen. And then we say, all right, what would happen if you went with lots and lots and lots, like 1,000 rows, and and said, okay, what would happen? The binomial situation, any number of pegs, bins, and marbles you wanted. And I even invite the students when they ask, well, what should I say about this? I said, run it with some more numbers, pick n is equal to 15, or pick your number of balls to come down as not 450, but 1,000, and, rev the speed up and see what happens. And then we ask them to experiment by saying, what if it were P were 20% chance of success? What if it were 80% chance? And I actually have had a few students comment on this one. This one is actually an extra question that I don't grade off if they don't do it, but a few students get really brave and actually will run it and say, hey, I see what's going on here. It's tilted one way or the other, depending on whether the probability of success is high or whether it's low. And that makes sense, right? If the probability of success is low, you would expect the total number of successes to be fairly low. If the probability of success is high, you would expect the points in the game to be fairly high. And that makes some sense there. Okay. Did I answer the question reasonably fully?
I think so. And we did have one of the instructors ask if you'd be willing to share one of these, maybe the student Excel file with us, and I can put that on the page where we're going to be hosting the recording.
You mean like my grade file?
No, I'm sorry. The example. So the student Excel file that you give to students for them to participate. I think the instructor is hoping to have you share it and be able to download it and take a look at it more fully themselves.
Oh, okay. Like these assignments?
Yes.
Okay, because I was saying my examples definitely, they're copyright me, so I can definitely share those. Let me run this past my course coordinator if it's okay, and if they have any reservations. I can't share the exams, okay? The examinations are definitely security material, and I know that would provoke a what? So or rather, if somebody really wants to see one of the exams, I'll refer them to the course coordinator and let him make the call on that. But the assignments, the Excel assignments, people would like to know if they want to share, if I'd be willing to share some of them.
I think if we could share one or two, and we could share them without the answers. I think the instructors, can fully fill in the answers themselves, but that would give them a chance to perhaps adapt this for their own class.
Oh, definitely. I would be very happy to do that. Do you want me to send them to you, Danny?
You can send them to me if that's something we can get approval for, and we'll post them on the blog where we'll host the video, and we'll send that out to everybody.
Okay. I'll need to pass this by my course coordinator, just make sure it's okay. If it's not okay, then what I'll do is I'll share some of my personal documents that I've created, because like I said, I have copyright over those, and that will give some ideas on some of this, okay? Some of this material does have copyright references on it. I don't think there'll be a problem, but I don't want to promise something that I don't have total control over here. So I'll send it past Jeff and get back to you, and if so, I'll send a couple of them, okay?
Okay, sounds great. We have a few more questions. I know we're running up here on an hour already. Time has flown by, but I want to see if we can get to the last few questions we have.
Sure.
Penny asks, do you ever have assignments due on holidays, such as spring break, Memorial Day, etc.?
Spring break, yes. Memorial Day, we try to stay off the major holidays, the Thanksgiving and the Memorial Day. That we try to avoid it if at all possible. 4th of July. During the week of spring break, yes, because it's a week. And again, I'm very nice about late, so I'm just saying, hey, if I do it during the Wednesday of spring break, surely you can find some time, or you can submit it early. But I try to be as respectful as I can. Certainly any major holiday, Thanksgiving Day, Memorial Day, not happening.
And Richard asks, do you do any online video presentations at all with this class?
You mean like live ones?
I think live, or some instructors choose to insert previously recorded videos as part of the material for their course.
That's those attached videos that I made. Those are my personal videos. So yes, those they're used as assistance videos. But sure, let me show you one from. There we go. The Unit 3 that I'm very proud of. This is one where I talk about how to use the idea of, building hypotheses. So this is just one where I talk about how do you know whether it's, less than, or greater than, or not equal, one left tail, right tail, two tail tests. And we have templates where all the algebra is done for them. These are attached in the Excel guide. All they have to do is fill in the items in red. Let me pull that one up. The Unit 3 Excel guide. Unit 3, and that would be part 1. There we go. We show them how to use it in worked out examples of hypothesis tests. And what it does is the student will fill in from the problem the items labeled in red. So you have to find from the problem, what's the significance level? What's your mean? Which means you'll probably be computing it from the data, it's average. What is the comparison mean? That has to be given in the problem. What is the population standard deviation? Has to be given in the problem. And how many data points do you have? That'll either be told you in the problem, or you'll see it in the data set itself. And then the template will compute everything else. Now you say, where are the templates? They're back here. We attach a copy in the Excel guide. There's a copy in the Unit 3 problem set, and a copy in the Unit 3 exam and the final exam. And so the student has to make the decision. What parameter am I working with? Is it an average, which is a mean? Is it a proportion or a standard deviation? Do you have one sample or two? We have some problems where it's two independent samples, large or small, and then we have the single sample problems. And so if you say, okay, I've got a not equals, that's two-tailed. I'm working with the mean, and I had to compute the standard deviation. That is stdev.s, which is the sample standard deviation. That would be a two-tailed mean with sigma unknown. It says, I need your significance level, your sample mean. What's the comparison mean that you're going to use in the problem? What is your sample standard deviation? That's stdev.s in Excel lingo. How many data points do you have? You can count them. Sometimes the problem will tell you. Fill those in, and then the rest of it just pops. And then they actually copy this and paste paste values only onto their problem. And then they can discuss, okay, is the p-value less than your significance level? In this case, yes, it is. 7 1,000ths is definitely less than 5 100ths. Okay, so that tells me I need to reject the null hypothesis that the mean was equal to 118 in favor of the alternate hypothesis you have evidence that the mean is probably not 118, okay, at the 5% level, and so on and so forth. So this is kind of canned algebra, but they do have to make good choices. So if they choose the two-tailed mean with sigma known, that means they think it's a z-score test. That's going to give them bad answers, and they lose points because they have to make good choices here. They have to be a little careful, okay? But that's algebra assistance, big time, on how to use them. And let's see, I have a video on, okay, come on, it keeps wanting to, all right.
Kathy, I'm going to jump in here.
Okay.
We are running we're right up on the time limit.
Okay.
So I want to just make two comments before we sign off. Latrice suggested also looking into Collaborate. She says that's part of Blackboard.
Okay.
And that's a tool that classes have access to. And then Carmen asked, as part of the files you potentially would be sharing, Carmen asks if the Excel guides you just showed might be something you're willing to share as well.
Okay, I will put a question of share Excel guide.
So thank you to our audience. This was a great question and answer session. Really appreciate you participating, Professor Leonard. Thank you for all of your time today, for telling us all about your class, and for helping share how instructors across the country can work to adapt their classes online. So I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. If you have questions, email us at marketing@hoxlearning.com, and we will make sure to send out a recording of this to you all later today or tomorrow.
Thank you all for having such great questions, and thank you for suggesting other software options. I will definitely run them past my colleagues and see what they know about them. Again, we're looking at this as we're mutating over time, as it were, trying to make this better and better and better. Thank you for helping me on that.
Okay, stay safe, everyone.
Okay, thank you.